Welcome back to another episode of Rock Boys Football. The Miami Hurricanes put on the pads for spring practice early this morning and want to talk about some names that are really starting to separate as spring practice continues to go on. And this is one of the more exciting teams to track during spring practice. You have the newcomers coming in. This is a very young team that you kind of expect a lot of guys to kind of separate and take that step as spring practice continues to go on. Really excited to get into it. Before we do, and as always, just want to say thank you to you guys. A massive shout out to the Miami Hurricane fans. Y'all know this is a program I love talking about. Cannot thank you guys enough for all the support you guys have shown the boys. If y'all do enjoy the content, consider subscribing to the channel, and would love to hear from you guys in terms of some names that are really popping for you as well as spring practice rolls on. And without further ado, let's get into this one. And we got to start with the new quarterback in Cam Ward, who, many of the Miami Hurricane fans who've been listening for the last couple of weeks and months know how excited I am about Cam Ward. And I get a lot of people in the comment section because it's no secret. I am high on this Miami Hurricanes team heading into 2024. Oh, you're falling for the Hurricanes hype once again. I say, yeah, maybe so. I'm definitely on the bandwagon here, but it's different. And I think it's different because Cam Ward, in my mind, is one of the best quarterbacks in the country. Now, listening to what Cam Ward has looked like as spring practice has rolled on, you're starting to get that feel that he's developing a little bit more chemistry with this wide receiver room. And the wide receiver that I want to emphasize the most is Xavier Restrepo. This is, I think, one of the more dynamic quarterback wide receiver combinations that we are going to see across the country in 2024. When you go back to the film in Cam Ward, the number one receiver he likes to go to is those slot wide receivers. And yes, Xavier Restrepo, not necessarily the prototypical wide receiver one body, but you are truly looking at a wide receiver one in this offense from the slot, in the chemistry that Cam Ward and Xavier Restrepo seem to be building over the last couple of weeks. I really do think we are looking at a very exciting wide receiver quarterback combination. Another name that I want to shout out at the wide receiver room is Isaiah Horton. And how I kind of envision this Miami Hurricanes wide receiver room looking, you kind of got some guys that can do all sorts of things, right? Xavier Restrepo is your grade A separator. He is going to find space. He's going to be a quarterback-friendly wide receiver. He's going to lead this team in targets. He's going to lead this team in catches. And I think he leads this team in receiving yards as well. You have a guy in Jacoby George who I think is truly special with the football in his hands. And if he can find that consistency, he's going to be the guy that, hey, we're going to try to get the football to in space, but know who's kind of coming on. And when we did our breakout players, kind of gave you guys some of my predictions on who's breaking out, Isaiah Horton on the boundary and how I think he fits in. You talk about Xavier Restrepo, work in the middle of the field. How is all that space going to be created? I think it's going to be because Isaiah Horton is going to be a wide receiver that you have to respect working vertically down the field. He has a big body, can make those contested catches. Cam Ward, a phenomenal arm pushing the ball down the field. You have some wide receivers that do all sorts of different things. You sprinkle in guys like JoJo Trader and Ray Joseph. I hear a lot of Miami fans saying we need to get a wide receiver in the transfer portal. The way I look at this wide receiver room, I feel pretty good about what it looks like heading into 2024. Now, the next player and kind of position group that I want to talk about is the running back room. Now, obviously, there's been a lot of news coming from this running back room over the last couple of days and weeks. Henry Parrish transferring out of the program. Mark Fletcher really not sure what's going on with his health and will he be ready to begin 2024. I think we're getting a feel for why Henry Parrish might have been on his way out for this Miami Hurricanes program. And that is Chris Johnson, Trevante Citizen. They sound like they are really putting it together this spring. Now, Chris Johnson, a guy that from the notes that you're reading, probably emerging as a running back that is going to get a lot of run in 2024. And he is one of the more electric players in college football, one of the fastest players, that's for sure, in college football. And I'm really excited to see how they decide to get Chris Johnson the football in this Hurricanes offense. I feel like at times they didn't do a good enough job getting the ball to their playmakers last year. A guy like Brashard Smith, I really wanted him to get more touches. They never seemed to find a way to get him those touches. I really hope they do a better job with Chris Johnson because you're looking at a guy that truly has game-breaking athleticism and speed. And And the other running back I want to shout out is Trevante Citizen. And again, probably kind of explaining why Henry Parrish might have been leaving this program, because it sounds like Chris Johnson is seemingly going to be very involved in this offense. And a guy like Trevante Citizen, someone that we've been extremely excited about since he came out of high school, finally healthy. He's absorbing contact. He's getting a lot of work in spring practice. And yes, you have some question marks as Henry Parrish leaves, Mark Fletcher leaves. I feel pretty good about this running back room, and maybe Miami doesn't need to go to the portal to address that position. Next guy I want to talk about, and kind of moving to the offensive line. And when you look at this Miami Hurricanes offensive line, I don't really see a reality where it's not one of the better units in the ACC, but one position that I'm really looking at is that left guard, where you have Lou Cristobal still working with the ones in spring practice. And I think, one, I'm happy that they're using Samson Okunlola on the inside. This is a guy that I do think can play the tackle position as he continues to develop. Him going into year 2, I feel like you got to find a way to get him on the field. And I think a position battle that we're seeing kind of come together is Pancake Concho and Lou Cristobal for that kind of last starting spot on the offensive line. I'll continue to beat the drum. I think Samson Okunlola wins out for this position battle. I think he represents a little bit more of what Miami wants to do on the offensive line, that is running the football, being physical at the point of attack. And you look at just at the physical traits in the ceiling that a guy like Lou Cristobal and Samson have. I mean, Samson's a guy that is going to continue to get better, and again, would be surprised if we still see Lou Cristobal trotting out there with the starting offensive line week 1 of the season. But that's a position group that we got to still monitor, because as of right now, Lou Cristobal is still working with the ones. So we'll continue to monitor that. But I am happy to see Samson Okunlola working at that guard position. Now, going to the defensive side of the football, one thing I want to mention in this defensive back room is it sounds like Michel Powell going to be playing that nickel role, which is really exciting. And I think that you're hearing a lot of really good battles between Michel Powell and a guy like Xavier Restrepo. And why I'm so excited for Michel is, hey, he gets to work against one of the better slot wide receivers, maybe the best slot wide receiver in the country heading into 2024. This is what you want from an elite football program like the Hurricanes. Really good competition on the practice field. You look at what the secret is for a team like Georgia. The best teams that Georgia goes up against are the teams that they see in practice for the last couple of years. You're starting to see that kind of competition manifest for the Miami Hurricanes as well. Michel Powell going to get better just by working against Xavier Restrepo in that slot consistently during practice. A guy that I'm really happy to seemingly kind of maybe find his groove, and he's going to have a massive opportunity with some of the injuries that they have in this cornerback room as we stand right now, is Jedias Richard. Long arms, smooth mover, a guy that hasn't played a ton during his college football career, only going into year 3 of his college football career. Fire me up for Jedias Richard, maybe starting to put it together, and he's going to get a lot of reps as spring practice continues to roll on. And you've heard some spring practice notes where he's going through some growing pains, but I think that you're starting to hear a little bit more positive news from him, and that is a position that, I mean, if there's one position that I really do have a question mark for the Miami Hurricanes, it probably is in the secondary. Jedias Richard slowly putting it together. Really, really exciting for the Miami Hurricanes. Now, skipping the defensive line, I want to talk about one other player really quick, and that is true freshman early enrollee Adarius Hayes, who won the biggest my takeaway so far is he's up to 230 pounds. Right? He was a 6'4", 200-pound linebacker coming into this program. He's put on the weight. And is Adarius Hayes going to be a starting linebacker for this Miami Hurricanes program in 2024? I'd probably be surprised, but it's really exciting to see him kind of emerge as one of those linebackers that can provide some depth, because, yeah, we don't have any question marks about Maui Noah and Wesley Bassane. You might have some question marks about the linebackers behind them and what that depth looks like, and it sounds like Adarius Hayes could certainly be one of those role linebackers, and a guy that brings a really diverse skill set. When you go back to watch his high school film, he's coming off the edge as an edge rusher. He has that prototypical length. You can use him in a lot of different ways. And so if he suddenly becomes a guy that you feel comfortable playing as a true freshman, I think that's really exciting for the Hurricanes. Now, you kind of look at how spring practice is going. think you're hearing what you want to hear, right? And it's obviously spring practice. We'll evaluate the spring game. That's probably the most information we'll be able to get. But the wide receivers and quarterbacks starting to build some chemistry, I think that is really good. You're hearing some healthy competition between the wide receivers and the cornerbacks. I think if you're a Hurricanes fan, so far during spring practice, there's a lot to be excited about. Wanted to hop on, talk about some guys that might be breaking out for this Hurricanes program. Appreciate you guys rocking with the fellas. If y'all do enjoy the content, consider subscribing to the channel. Appreciate you guys, and we'll talk to y'all later.